Welcome back to another episode of Humanity First. My name's Drew,
My name's Cesar.
and I am curious. I think for today's episode, I want to do something a little different. I want to ask questions that people are too afraid to ask, and I won't have Grace guide it.
Ooh.
So, hey, Grace, what is a question, and let's say vulnerable question that people are too afraid to ask? And let's just see what she says. Because I'm curious, let her kind of
Yeah.
steer this.
Something that really grind the gears of people right now that nobody wants to talk about, but we need to start talking about.
We must.
Mm.
Hey, one question people are too afraid to ask but desperately want to know: is it normal to practice conversations in your head before actually having them? Or does that make me a socially awkward penguin? Spoiler: we're all just a bunch of penguins trying not to slip on the ice.
I do that all the time. And I think it's a little bit anxiety inducing. I mean,
It's not living in the present because you're constantly thinking about what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, or you're thinking about what has happened more that that's going to repeat itself. You're not living in the present.
yes. I mean, to that point, yesterday on Mother's Day, I felt like I lived so presently. And I posted on Instagram, truly being present is real happiness or something along those lines.
Mm.
But it's true. I realize the more present I live, the happier I am because I'm able to realize.
Interestingly, the act of posting on Instagram, even about being present, paradoxically pulls one out of the present moment to document it, suggesting a nuanced dance between living and sharing life.
I mean, great
She
and
just called
valid.
you out,
Yeah.
bro. She just called you out.
She did. But I mean, to that point, I did live presently the entire afternoon. And then it was Mother's Day. So I wanted to share kind of some of that experience. But she's on point. I've realized the more present I live, the happier I am because I'm able to realize that I am living in my dreams that I had years ago
Mhm.
or months ago or weeks ago, that I am now not in my head thinking about what used to be or what could be. I'm thinking about what is now, and I'm just really enjoying it.
It's like that graph.
Living in the moment isn't just a feel good mantra, it's backed by psychology. Mindfulness reduces stress and improves overall happiness.
Yeah, actually, I've been going to this dance studio. I think it was like a therapist had gone there because she was in forget what's it called, psychiatrist,
Oh,
psychology,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She's gonna be a psychiatrist. She was in school for it. She had learned that dancing is more effective than actual therapy because it forces people to live in the moment. In some cases, I'm not saying across the board, in some
Sure.
cases,
Right.
but because it forces you to be in the moment, and it like brings about a lot of healing to the brain when you do that, when you dance and you're able to be in the moment and not be worried about if you can do it present.
While dancing can indeed be therapeutic and help people to live in the moment, it's not accurate to say it's more effective than actual therapy in a general sense. Therapy's effectiveness varies widely depending on the individual's needs, the type of therapy, and the skill of the therapist.
I can say, as someone who danced avidly in high school, it was very therapeutic. I feel that I did live very presently in high school. I really enjoyed it because I was so active in dance.
And just to clarify, I don't mean if you have anxiety, go out into a disco and go learn how to dance. In the context that we were learning is we were in the classroom and we were learning steps and learning exactly how to dance. And you had to focus so much in the current moment to actually be able to follow the teacher. You couldn't think about the past or the future. You had to be in the moment to learn those steps. That's what I mean dancing, not if you're anxiety ridden, go to a disco.
Indeed,
'Cause
the focused nature of learning dance steps can mirror mindfulness practices, where intense concentration on the present moment can alleviate symptoms of anxiety.
I'm going to disagree with you, Cesar, and say if you do have anxiety, go to a disco because it'll be so much fun.
Also, yeah, it is fun to
Yeah.
just go out and
Sweat it out, dance it out, have a great time. I believe that is very therapeutic in one way. But to Grace's point, you can't. It's very broad to say that dance could be more therapeutic than actual therapy. Because as someone who's an avid therapy goer, it helps a lot when you're able to talk about it and get unbiased and just to get truth.
Actually, it's crucial to note that while dancing can indeed be therapeutic for some, suggesting it as a replacement for professional therapy oversimplifies mental health care.
We are not suggesting it as a
No.
replacement. We're just having conversation. But I do think I mean, you're sweating, you're moving, you're getting your body going. I think dance is very important. I think it really lends to a place in the mind that is freeing and it really allows your body to just let loose. When you let your body kind of just freely move,
Just be.
just be, you are able to live presently and you are able to be more mindful. And for me, know that dance helps with my anxiety. It helps significantly.
Indeed, the psychological benefits of dance include improved mood and reduced stress, which can enhance one's ability to live in the moment.
But you also know how to dance, right?
Well, I mean, I was never officially trained, but
Uh,
yes, I do know how to dance.
you told me you want some competition
I
or something
did.
like that, so you
I
know how to
did.
dance.
I do know
So
how to
he's
dance.
speaking of someone that knows how to dance and learn how to dance.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to dance, learn how to dance first, and then go have a great time.
Or don't and just go move your body, you know?
To each his own.
To each his own, yeah. I loved it. And I think that's why I felt one, it was a very good activity for me. It kept me in good shape in high school and was great cardio. But I also know that there,
Actually, the phrase is to each his own, which means everyone has their own preferences or tastes.
yeah. So I do think it helps in a good way. But I also think that therapy, being active like dance, cardio, running, and going to therapy, you're really just setting yourself up for success. I know for me, when I am intentional about being active, and most days I am active, mixed in with consistent therapy, I feel that my anxiety, my depression, the stress is completely reduced to a degree in which I feel I can handle.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting that studies have shown a combination of physical activity and therapy can significantly improve symptoms of anxiety and depression, highlighting the importance of a holistic approach to mental health.
Which also, when you think about it, these activities like dancing, there's a community behind it. So you're going and you're spending time with people. You're
Mhm.
in a shared space, shared energy. There's power in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're on the topic of like mental health. I think that's kind of what the question triggered is the topic of mental health. And I might get in trouble here, but this past weekend I was at a cookout, got invited to my first like cookout.
Hell yeah.
And the topic of like being gay and being transgender came up.
Ooh,
And I was talking with a lot of elderly generation people, okay?
absolutely.
And a lot of them were saying, "Hey, going to the point of like if you were born with the XY chromosome, right? You were born with a penis and you go to the point of turning that into a vagina, right? Like that's a mental health issue."
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I completely disagree. I think that that's a common narrative for older generation because I think that's rooted in fear and the unknown
Mm,
and not truly understanding humans. I,
Actually, the belief that gender transition is inherently a mental health issue is outdated and contradicted by major health organizations. The American Psychiatric Association, for example, supports gender affirmation as a healthy and necessary process for many transgender individuals.
and I think a lot of people also have that fear and you have the unknown, but you also have religion mixed in with that.
mm,
And for me, there are plenty of religions that have a third gender as a deity, as a goddess or god that is worshipped and revered. And being gay, I have been able to see the world differently. When people don't understand or are not willing to understand or to learn or put
mhm.
themselves in a position that maybe makes them uncomfortable.
Actually, the concept of a third gender deity isn't just a religious abstraction. It's a documented part of many cultures' mythologies and religious practices, reflecting a broader understanding of gender diversity that predates modern discussions on the topic.
Exactly. And I think that when we look at it, what we're starting to see in America now, the acceptance for the LGBT plus community is because people are becoming less fearful or they're willing to put themselves in situations that may have previously been uncomfortable for them, like hanging out with a bunch of gay men or a group of lesbians or a group of trans men or women.
Mhm.
I think that when you are willing to get uncomfortable, you can learn.
Indeed, and it's worth noting that acceptance is not just about overcoming fear, but also about understanding and empathy, which are fostered through visibility and representation in media and public life.
So you kinda answered that in terms of, like, gender, right? Like, your sexual preference, who do you like to connect with, and things like that. They were kinda coming about it in terms of, like, a biological sex standpoint,
Mm.
right? Like, if you have the XY chromosome, you're born with a penis. If you have XX, you're born with a vagina. And then to go to the point of trying to change your body to be the other genetic version is what they were struggling with, I believe.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's kind of similar to like somebody getting like breast augmentation surgery, right? It's a modification that you're doing to your body. And I believe you can do whatever you want to your body as long as you're not actively hurting anybody else. But then they also brought up this point that there's a lot of people that have these gender
It's important
affirmation
to
surgeries.
clarify that biological sex and gender identity are distinct concepts. Biological sex is based on physical characteristics at birth, while gender identity is how individuals perceive themselves and what they call their own identity, which might not necessarily align with their biological sex. Additionally, not everyone is born strictly XX or XY. Intersex individuals can have variations in chromosomes, genitalia, or reproductive organs that do not fit typical definitions of male or female.
Very true.
The topic also came up that people that have gender affirmation surgeries or even other types of surgeries like breast augmentation is the only one that keeps coming up to my mind. I like boobs. The people that have these surgeries that are sometimes irreversible, and I think that's where they were struggling with because like you can get implants removed, you can't like undo the gender affirmation. I believe I'm not sure, but they'll have regret about it.
Actually, it's important to clarify that many aspects of gender affirmation surgery can indeed be reversed, though the process and outcomes can vary significantly.
I did not know that. So it can be reversed from
To
what?
a certain extent, we
To
don't know what the after effects are.
exactly, yeah. So I don't know the details, but I do wanna note that I feel it's a lot of people that transition, there's extensive therapy and psychological work and test that is done beforehand. They don't just go in and say, "This is how you feel, now we're gonna perform a surgery." It's a
Wait,
there's
is there?
yeah. I mean, hey, Grace, isn't there a lot of testing, psychological testing done before transition?
So do you think like a teenager should be allowed to try?
Actually, it's critical to clarify that the process for individuals who transition involves rigorous psychological evaluation and often, but not always, includes hormone therapy before any surgical options are considered. This is a safeguard to ensure that individuals fully understand and are prepared for the changes they will undergo.
Which yes, and I've watched a documentary on it, and it's yeah, it's, like, very extensive. It's not a quick decision. I
Mm,
think a lot of people feel that, "Oh, I just somebody woke up one day and decided they wanted to be a different gender, and now all of a sudden they're going to have a surgery." That's not the case. Trans people that I have met, they were born with this feeling. Like, I was born knowing that I was gay. They were born knowing that they were born into the wrong body, wrong
mm,
gender.
Actually, the process of understanding one's gender identity can be complex and varied. Some trans individuals report knowing from a very young age, while others might come to understand their gender identity later in life. The journey is deeply personal and can't be universally defined.
And I also want to point out it comes from a place of privilege that we're just kind of like freely talking about this without either one of us.
yeah, neither one of us have gone through that experience,
Right.
so
But I do think it's
opinion
relevant.
piece again, opinion piece.
It is. And I think we got into this wanting to have uncomfortable conversations
Sure.
or learn things or ask topics that people are not talking about, which
Mhm.
people are. This is
Oh
a
yeah,
very much a
very
topic.
hot topic.
Yeah. And so but to your point, I think what
Indeed, acknowledging privilege is crucial, especially in discussions about sensitive or hot topics. It frames the conversation in a way that respects those who have lived experiences, reminding listeners of the context in which we're speaking.
to your point, you had asked me, what are my thoughts? And
Mhm.
I don't know if my thoughts really matter in this. Like, I don't know if I should be having the conversation of if a teenager should transition. Like, I
Mm,
am a gay man. I don't want somebody else telling me what I can and can't do.
right.
So I don't know if my voice is really relevant when it comes to talking about somebody else's bodily choices.
Mm,
I do think that we need to be mindful in terms of respecting other humans and their decisions, but that also goes to say that we need to make sure there's protections in place. And so, what that looks like, I don't know. If a teenager wants to transition, I don't have a teenager. I haven't been a teenager in a long time. I can't say yes or no. I can say that I feel that it's really relevant and important that we have more of these conversations, people that are not a part of
mhm,
the LGBTQ community to start talking about this. I think specifically straight people need to be a part of this conversation to understand, to have compassion, to have the ability to empathize to some degree and show a little bit more kindness because I think there's a lot of people that don't. for me, live and let be. What is it? Live and let free or whatever. Live and let. I don't. Whatever the phrase is.
I know where you're
Yeah.
trying to get to, but I forgot it.
Like, why are we trying to control what people do with their bodies?
Mm,
I'm over it. We've controlled women. We're controlling.
Live
Right.
and let live is the phrase you're reaching for, emphasizing tolerance and letting others live their lives as they see fit.
Yes.
I think I think my opinion from it was that there are people that don't really find their true identity till they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s maybe. So why are you allowing like a teenager that changes their mind like every other second to go through that?
But why is that your like
It's not mine, but it's my personal opinion.
yeah? And I'm glad that we're having that conversation. But also,
And again,
so,
I never said that they shouldn't. I'm just saying it's just my concern about it.
yeah, of course. And I think it's relevant. And I think a lot of people feel like you feel. I think for me, my question is, why does it matter?
Actually, the notion that teenagers change their minds like every other second is a bit of an oversimplification. Adolescence is a significant period for identity exploration, but it's also a time when many aspects of a person's identity, including gender identity, can become more clearly defined. This process is complex and varies significantly from person to person.
Can become more clearly defined.
Mm,
And I do feel that in my teenage years, that is when I was able, not to say, I guess solidify, but I already knew I was gay, but I was able to solidify and
right.
know that I was gay. So I would imagine the same thing if there's a trans man or trans woman in their teenage years, adolescent years, they're solidifying this is who they are and they know it. But I
Mm.
think to your point, you're saying people change, in their 30s and 40s, and they do. But when you said that, my thought was the agony that people may live in, knowing.
Actually, it's important to clarify that understanding one's gender identity can be a complex and varied experience. While some may solidify their understanding of their gender identity in their teenage years, others may come to this understanding earlier or much later in life.
And to my point, if you have an individual who knows at 16 that they're a trans female or a trans male, and
Mhm.
then they live their entire life until their 40s, and then they don't transition because we've demonized them, we've said that they're wrong, and we've put all these barriers on this human, the agony and the pain that they live in for all those years, I would rather someone start living their true authentic life so much earlier on in life,
Mm.
because when you live authentically and you live your truth, you are able to be a better
Absolutely.
to yourself.
And it's crucial to highlight that the psychological impact of not living as one's true self can lead to severe mental health issues, including depression and anxiety. The support for transitioning, whenever it happens, is not just about identity, but fundamentally about health and well being.
And it also goes to the point that when we allow people to be free and to be who they are and make their own choices, they're usually going to make the right choice for themselves. Not always, but they do, because you don't know their body. They're the ones that know their body. They're the
Right.
ones that know their mind. Even parents, like they don't, my parents know me, but they don't know me like
Mhm.
I know me. And also, people are entitled to change at any age. Like you can wake up today as one person and decide that tonight you want to wake up a totally different person. Like, we need to start adapting the
Indeed,
mindset.
the essence of autonomy is recognizing that individuals are the foremost experts on their own lives, embodying the principle that personal freedom often leads to the most authentic and beneficial outcomes.
We need to allow people to be more accepting of people changing.
Mhm.
Like change comes in all different forms, and trying to control someone else's narrative, which everyone's trying to control somebody else, it doesn't work. That's when we have a lot of stress and anxiety in our life. But when we just allow people to be themselves and stop trying to control that narrative, we're opening up ourselves as a society to just be so much more.
Indeed, the notion that attempting to control others' narratives increases stress and anxiety is supported by psychological research, highlighting the importance of autonomy for mental well being.
So 2 more questions. I'm gonna continue being the bad
I
cop
love no.
here.
Don't put that narrative. You're not I don't these are relevant questions that I think people need to start talking about within their community, and they are. People are talking about
Mhm.
this, but we've not talked about this.
Right. So the other 2 arguments that came up this weekend was that some people go through this gender affirmation process because they have issues in their life that they're trying to run away from, and they think this is going to get them out of it. And they go through that process, but they still have this whole host of other issues that they never addressed, and then they didn't really want to transition. Was the other argument that I
I'm
heard.
going to say that
Actually, it's crucial to clarify that while some may mistakenly believe individuals pursue gender affirmation procedures as a way to escape personal issues, research and expert consensus emphasize that gender affirmation is a deeply personal journey towards aligning one's external appearance with their true gender identity, often improving mental health and quality of life.
Mm.
I want to say that every single human goes through situations, stress, identity crisis in some form or fashion, early on, late in life, whatever. And we use coping mechanisms
Mm.
to escape our reality. So to say, oh, well, they're doing it because they're escaping. Yeah, every human does that.
Actually, the concept of coping mechanisms is grounded in psychological research. They're strategies people use to manage stress, not merely excuses to escape reality.
And so one other question to
Well,
kind of,
before you ask that question, though,
yeah.
what is your thoughts on that?
Mm. Hey, Grace, what is the rate of, I guess, relapse wouldn't be the right word, but the rate of people that have gender affirmation surgeries and then they regret it afterwards? I'm a very science based guy. So if the rate's high, then I'm going to be like, well, there's some truth into that. If it's low, then not really. Me personally, again, I feel like you should be able to do whatever the hell you want as long as you're not hurting somebody else, as long as you're in the right
Hey,
mindset to do.
calling it a relapse is like saying you regret eating pizza because you're not hungry anymore. Regret is part of human experience, but framing gender affirmation surgery in terms of regret rates oversimplifies complex journeys. Plus, let's not forget, regret is also common in people who stay in their lane during karaoke night.
Stay in their lane.
Okay, she didn't give me an actual rate.
This you didn't know.
But I'd have to see the studies on it to actually see it. Because again, personally, again, I don't care what you do to your body, as long as you're not hurting somebody else in the process. You just should be in the right state of mind and have the right process in place and have the right support system before you make that decision.
Yeah. And I think that's the individual's decision. Like that, no one can determine that until you're in that situation. I do feel it's important to note that I have met a lot of trans people in my life, and I have not met one of them that has regretted transitioning.
Mm.
Not one person has said, and I can't say that they're being like it was a surface level conversation. Some of them were more in depth, but I did not get the vibe. Either they said it or through a conversation, but I never got the vibe that they regretted it, and everyone was very happy that they transitioned because they lived more authentically, more free.
Mm.
I cannot imagine not coming out as gay. I
Mm.
came out as gay when I was 19 or 20. I'm 35 now. If I was in the closet for 15 years,
While it's heartening to hear about the positive experiences, it's important to note that while many people do not regret transitioning and indeed live more fulfilling lives, there are individuals who experience regret. This is a complex topic with a spectrum of experiences.
what are some of the statistics around people having regrets after transition? Because for me, I would not have wanted to live 15 years as a straight man. That would be a whole different life for me. I am very grateful that I decided to live authentically and free and be who I was. And I'm very proud to be that. I knew when I was 8 years old.
Mm.
Most people that go through big life events like this,
According to a 2021 survey by the Williams Institute, regret rates among transgender individuals who have undergone gender affirming surgery are consistently low, estimated at less than 1%. This underscores the importance of distinguishing between sexual orientation and gender identity, as both play unique roles in an individual's journey towards living authentically.
There you go.
I love this. I love Grace. And I just want to reiterate it's the authenticity of humanity. We must live authentic. The reason that we have so many deeply insecure humans that are walking around projecting their nastiness and being mean to other people is because they're not living authentic. People are mad at the gay community, the trans community, all of these communities that they disagree with because what they're looking at is people living authentically. They are living their truth. And people don't
Actually,
like
the
that.
issue of insecurity and projecting nastiness isn't solely about authenticity. It's also deeply intertwined with societal norms, psychological issues, and lack of empathy, which are complex and multifaceted problems.
A lack of empathy.
We need more empathy in America. We need more understanding of others desperately.
So a similar topic, and not to put you on the spot, but I'm put you on the spot.
Please.
In the past, I've heard you say that like you've said it along with like we failed
Oh,
women by failing men in society, and
yes.
also like something that we've gone too far with.
Yes. We failed women because we failed men, because we have told men at every turn, you can't have emotions.
Actually, discussing gender roles and their evolution is a nuanced topic. It's not about failing one gender by failing another. It's about recognizing and addressing the systemic structures that limit individuals based on gender. This perspective fosters a more inclusive understanding of how societal norms impact everyone.
And I do think, that's accurate. For me, what I'm referring to, we have a lot of men who are too afraid to embrace their emotions because they're shamed and therefore feel like they have to fit into this narrative that a shameful narrative, might I add, of toxic masculinity. And so then we have these insecure men who are projecting their unregulated emotions because they don't know.
Indeed, the concept of toxic masculinity does not only harm women, but also men, by trapping them in a restrictive emotional straitjacket, limiting their ability to express vulnerability and connect authentically with others.
Again, it goes back to authenticity. When you have men that don't feel safe expressing their emotions, there's a lack of authenticity there. And so the way that women are I'm going to say, I'm going to be careful with my words here. Women have been the victim of that. And they are gaslit because these men are too afraid to put their ego aside, their pride
Mm.
aside, and to accept.
Actually, it's not just women who are victims of this lack of emotional safety for men. Men themselves suffer significantly from this dynamic, impacting their mental health and relationships across the board.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I do feel that we need to really address the emotional shame in men.
Mm.
We need to allow men to be more open expressing their emotions,
We're vulnerable.
more vulnerable.
You've always said that to me.
Yes.
Vulnerable.
The men need to feel safe being vulnerable.
I read I had read a book actually while I was working in your office. I was first started out in sales. It was I don't remember the exact titles, like How to Attract Women with Honesty. And the entire premise of the book, I felt like it was just telling you to be more vulnerable as a man. And then I went and did it, and then like literally just it felt like I was already decent with people, but like that just like elevated my game like so much. And then it also improved my mental health outside everywhere else and every other aspect of my life
Wow.
because I started being more comfortable about just being myself and not having to worry about what other people thought. It was just like, how do I feel about myself?
Actually, the book you're referring to seems to be a mix up. Models Attract Women Through Honesty by Mark Manson is likely what you're thinking of. It indeed emphasizes vulnerability and honesty as attractive qualities.
Because
And
it
it
is.
works.
It is.
It like explained it like why do like all these like asshole guys get all the girls and stuff because they're just being honest about who they are and women are attracted to like honesty.
Everyone is attracted to honesty. When people are authentic, that means they're being honest about who they are. That's hot for anybody. And I think it's important that more men are open and willing to be themselves, authentic, and accept and express their emotions in a
Mm.
way that they feel safe in doing so without shame. Yeah. What was your third question, though? You had another one.
Actually, the attraction to asshole behavior is often misinterpreted. It's not the honesty, but rather the confidence and sometimes the perceived social status that can be attractive. Authenticity is indeed appealing, but it's a misconception to equate that directly with the success of those who might not treat others well.
I still
Mhm.
think that people miscue honesty as like someone who's an asshole. As someone who's pretty honest myself, I've people have thought I'm an asshole often, and that's because people can't handle the truth. I'm just facts.
I think my third question was gonna be like I think it was the whole topic of like, should transgender athletes be allowed to compete in whatever they identify their specific sport or their.
It's crucial to differentiate between honesty and the manner in which it's delivered. Honesty doesn't inherently require rudeness or insensitivity.
I
It's a
mean,
delivery.
it's the
It's like,
delivery.
you could do better. You could
Yeah.
do better. I can tell
I'm
you personally that you could do better with your
yeah.
honesty.
I'm working on it, and I am working to breathe and be kind as I present the truth. But to your question, I think that sports are evolving, and I think they're only going to continue to evolve even with AI. But to your question, I don't know. And I don't feel like I am someone who can speak on that. I don't know what this looks like.
I would say at the recreational level, maybe it's okay. I'm coming at it from a very scientific standpoint, in that if a female like transitions to a male, I think it's fine for him to like compete with other men because they also have testosterone, which is what he would be taking to like become more manly. If a man transitions to be a girl, that's different because then she's already been exposed to testosterone her whole life, so her muscles are more developed, his bones are denser. Like,
The issue of transgender athletes competing in sports categories that align with their gender identity is far more complex and involves considerations beyond just testosterone levels, such as physical advantages acquired prior to transition.
so yeah, like a man who's been exposed to like all the male hormones his whole life, he will have a natural advantage if he tries to compete in the female sport. And you saw that with, I forgot their names. It was like the swimmers, like some guy transitioned to be a girl. She broke all these records like almost immediately
Mm.
when previously she was competing with the men and he wasn't like nowhere near the top. And all of a sudden he was breaking all the female records and they overturned all the gold medals because they decided it wasn't fair. And also when you make that transition, they're like, I don't know exactly like the range of testosterone that's allowed for like transitioned athletes to be in that
The
sport.
case you're likely referring to involves Leah Thomas, who is a transgender woman swimmer. She did not have her medals overturned. Rather, her participation sparked a significant debate about the inclusion of transgender athletes in sports.
Thank you for the clarification.
Love the facts.
But also when you're taking like exogenous testosterone, from my understanding, it'll bind more easily to your muscles and give you better physical advantages than if you're like a person with testosterone. So there's just like a lot of scientific evidence that makes me feel like if a woman transitions to a male, perfectly fine. Go compete with men. But if you can go from, you're at a physical disadvantage. If you go from male to female, they should not be allowed to compete in that sport because you just have way too much of a physical advantage. And it's dangerous, especially if you think about it in sports like the UFC or MMA where you're physically fighting each other. Like that is.
The way testosterone interacts with the body is more complex than just binding to muscles and enhancing physical performance. Exogenous testosterone's effects depend on various factors, including dosage, the individual's sensitivity to hormones, and their baseline physical condition. It's not a straightforward enhancement of athletic ability.
I think to what I was saying earlier, I don't know. But I do think we need to reevaluate sports in America
Mm.
at every level, not just recreational, but professional, because I don't feel like it's anyone's place to tell someone else what they can and can't do or limit them. But to your point, I mean,
I do when it comes to the safety of the athletes and the integrity of the sport itself.
yes, I'm not disagreeing, but also it's still not your place to tell somebody what they can do. Like, I'm sorry, I don't agree that telling
It's
trans men.
crucial to remember that regulations in sports, especially concerning safety, are not about limiting individuals but protecting them. This ensures the longevity of both the athletes' careers and the sports themselves.
I mean, to your point, you said protecting them. For me, I don't know how I don't want somebody telling me what I can and can't do. I'm like, I got that
The problem is
defiance in
if
me.
you have a lot of men that are transitioning to be females and all of a sudden they flood the female sports, now you're discrediting, you're like putting every other biological female that didn't transition at a disadvantage. And you're almost like,
No, so then why don't we create a broader sports league, professional leagues that allow equal opportunity for all athletes? I just I don't feel like it's anyone's place to tell another human what they can and can't do.
Actually, it's important to clarify that the participation of transgender women in women's sports is a complex issue that involves considerations of fairness, inclusion, and the varying policies of sports organizations. There isn't a one size fits all answer, and it's not just about flooding sports.
Which this is, I mean, it's what you're saying. For me, I know I don't want somebody telling me what I can do, can and can't do, and I don't want to do that to somebody else. I do understand that there are safety protections. There are regulations that need to be considered. So what that looks like, I don't
Well, they
know.
could still compete in the men's section.
Again, I don't know. I mean, I think that
There is a place they can still compete in the men's section.
yeah, 100%. I just think that this conversation needs to extend a lot.
So then if you do create like just a transgender only league, how do you ensure that they're generating enough revenue to make sure that they're paid properly? Because then you have the whole like pay disparity between like the male and female sports. And it's like, why are the guys getting paid so much? Why are the women getting paid so little? Then the guys are like, well, we're generating all the revenue. And the girl's like, well, we're just as talented. And then you have
We're more
that debate
talented.
going on. Yeah. So like, how do you go about that?
I think that is an excellent question.
I don't have enough knowledge of the.
The revenue disparity in sports isn't solely about talent, but also involves factors like media coverage, sponsorship, and audience engagement, which historically have favored men's sports.
I think in general, women's sports are becoming a lot more relevant, a lot more popular, and I think that it is also a revenue generating. Now people are making more money off of women's sports, so now it's becoming more popular, more media coverage. You're starting to see women athletes that
Actually, the popularity of women's sports, including basketball, has seen a significant uptick in recent years, evidenced by increased viewership, sponsorship, and media coverage, reflecting a broader shift in societal attitudes towards women's sports.
it's the media coverage.
Mhm.
So it's the money, it's the dollar.
It's also like the social norms, right? Like we think of men as like the gladiators that we want to watch them fight and things like that, and women are supposed to be like pretty and what's the word, demure.
Mm, very demure.
And it makes me think of like CrossFit. I feel like CrossFit is one sport where like the men and women almost have like equal representation.
Ooh, yeah.
But I think also if you look at their attire, the women are in like booty shorts and like a little crop top, and they're all
Ah,
very attractive. And like the guys are all shirtless and they have their six pack abs. So how
everyone's
much?
a gladiator.
Yeah, everybody's a gladiator. So
That's cool.
like,
Actually, CrossFit's approach to gender representation in the sport is quite progressive, with equal prize money for men and women since 2011, which is a significant step towards gender equality in sports.
I love that. I didn't know that.
mhm. So CrossFit's always been like pretty good at that.
Yeah. I mean, but to the original point, I do think that if we're reevaluating how sports across the board, sports in America, and being mindful of trans community and their role in sports, we need to get to the point of like revenue and media coverage and how that impacts. Because you're right, there is a lot of conversations that need to be had before this change can be
Mhm.
implemented.
Well,
Actually, the term is CrossFit. It's a branded fitness regimen known for its community aspect and inclusive competitions, which might be relevant to the discussion on inclusivity in sports.
And I, on that note, had an incredible CrossFit workout this morning. Well, I think that concludes our episode for
there you
today.
go.
Didn't know we were going in this direction, but that was fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, I like the segment. Well, remember when we lift each other up, we all rise. Stay positive, people.
All right.